Thank you again for joining us on the program, Integrating e-Signatures into Existing Workflows, part of the Adobe Sign Integrations webinar series. It's now my pleasure to turn the floor over to your first presenter, Sarah Linderman, Product Marketing Manager with Document Cloud. Sarah, you have the floor.
Thanks so much, Phil. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. Really excited to have you on the line as we talk to you a little bit about Adobe Sign and Microsoft and our partnership that enables you to easily integrate e-signatures into the existing systems and workflows that you have on your campus. I'm going to be doing a bit of this presentation, and I'm going to be joined by several colleagues, Garrett Schwartz and Lisa Cross, both from Adobe, as well as Jill Sitnick from Microsoft. So welcome to them as well. And let's go ahead and dive in. Before I get started on the content itself, I just wanted to give you a quick preview of what we're going to be covering today. There's a few different sections. I'm going to start with a high-level overview of the Adobe Sign approach to integration, as well as some of the benefits that it offers. Jill's going to hop in and help me talk a bit about the Microsoft partnership that we have. And then I'm going to throw it over to Garrett and Lisa, and they're going to go through an overview of what these integrated workflows look like and how they work. And you'll be able to get a real feel for it because Lisa's actually going to do some live demos. I will then wrap us up by doing a quick case study from the University of Iowa Foundation, who is very effectively leveraging this integration. And then we'll talk about a bit about what is to come in the future as it concerns our integrations approach. And finally, we'll wrap up with some resources that you can use to dig into this topic a little bit more and some next steps. Before we move to the content itself, I wanted to pop up a quick poll. A couple of questions here, just to get a sense of who's here and what you're hoping to get out of this session. Just make a note of what your role or department is, and also what you hope to get out of today's session. And I've left that open-ended just so you can put it into your own words. We'll just leave this up here for a session. More ways to use Adobe Sign, technology overviews, anything else? We might be able to integrate, making files more user-friendly. Okay, great. As I look through some of the answers, good news is you're in the right place, and I definitely think we're going to be able to help you with those questions that you're posing. All right, so feel free to keep entering those in the chat pod, and in the meantime, I'm going to take us on and into the presentation. All right, so before we talk about the integrations, I wanted to take a step back and just think about workflow processing in general. This is not news to anybody here, but it obviously takes an incredible amount of paperwork to run an educational institution, whether you be at a K-12 school or a university or college. And crazily enough, nearly 80% of school workflows are still at least partially paper-based. And you've probably thought about this yourself. It certainly creates a lot of challenges. So framing up the challenges through some specific workflows, think about student-facing forms. That could be anything like an IEP for the K-12 level, or in higher education, it could be something like the forms that are used to process add drop and kind of course administration. Unfortunately, when you have paper-based systems for these types of forms, it can create a lot of delays when you're doing it on paper. It's a lot of back and forth. There's the printout, there's the wet signature, there's the uploading, etc. It's a lot. It's lengthy, it's complex, and it can also result in errors and delays, which is certainly not a good thing. If you think about HR paperwork, HR forms, this is also an area that requires an extensive amount of paperwork, and the unfortunate part is it eats up a lot of staff time just using basic admin processes, which means you're taking classroom time away from your teachers, and even for admin people, you're kind of taking time away that they could be using to think of how to more efficiently run the school. And the third bucket I'll highlight is procurement. So procurement contract paperwork is just today very inefficient when it's based on papers. And too many of the forms end up being incomplete or inaccurate, and this can cause legal risk, right? If you lose sight of the audit trail and the tracking, and there's errors in the documentation, it can put the school at risk. So this is where Adobe Sign comes in. It can help you take all of these workflows and many more types that I haven't noted here, paperless. And this is really going to help you address these pain points, which can make a really big impact at your institution. It's going to make processing your paperwork simpler, more secure, more modern for your staff, and for your students. And the good thing is it's also designed to integrate with your existing tech stack, which helps you save money, but also it makes implementation a whole lot easier. And obviously that's our focal point for today. So let's talk a little bit more about that. Adobe Sign is really built to work with the systems that you already have in place at your institution. Our integrations and our APIs are designed to help you create these seamless automated workflows that make it so much easier for you to address a new solution to staff. So it's going to help you transform your signing and approvals processes, and you can do it all right within your existing application and your existing workflows. Let's get into some more specifics here. We often hear that the biggest hurdle when it comes to introducing an e-signature solution like Sign, or honestly, really any technical solution, the biggest hurdle is the change management aspect. It's really hard to bring in yet another technology solution and a new way of working for your staff, especially in education, which may not be at the very leading edge of the technology curve. There's a lot of inertia, but with Sign, because you can embed the approvals and signing into those existing workflows, it can help you remove that friction. So there's no new software and there's no learning curve. The other benefit to this approach is there's no additional cost. Our pre-built connectors and our APIs are all inclusive. They're all part of the package. You're not going to have any surprise fees for introducing a new integration as we go along. It's designed to work with a lot of the systems that you're likely using today. A few to call out here: Workday, Box, Jaeger Procurement Solution, Microsoft, others. Today, we're really going to dive very deeply, as you know, into that Microsoft integration, given the really deep functionality and applicability that we have here. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Jill, who's an education industry executive at Microsoft, and she's going to talk to you a little bit more about our partnership. All right,
yeah, so hi, everybody. Sarah, thank you so much. As Sarah said, I am the education industry executive for the U.S. I really focus on the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, and I run a national training partner program. But I think more importantly to the folks on this call, I came from 20 years in K-12. And in my stint as a supervisor of technology, I was one of the people in charge of negotiating the copy machine contract. And anything to reduce the amount of paper and the number of copy machines or the load there is very much appreciated. So I'm thrilled to be here to have this conversation because I think it can help everyone. And what's really important to understand, you've got two cloud leaders here. So when you're thinking about your solutions and your infrastructure, that's something to keep in mind. The integration works well to make sure that people don't lose their flow. Whatever part of M365 you're working in, there is an integration that can help you and specifically your organization. And when you're thinking about your organization, you want something turnkey that you can customize for yourself. Both products are institutional ready. We know what it's like to work with a varied group and provide you with a solid foundation and platform. And of course, the whole idea of the ecosystem working together so you can stay productive, you can get things done faster, more efficiently, and obviously more economically. And if we can then move to the next slide, just for an overview of M365. So I think this is a super fast overview for folks who might not be super familiar. Teams is our hub for teamwork, for collaboration, and I'm finding that the more that I use Teams, the more it becomes an invaluable tool with whatever apps I'm throwing in there, with whatever bookmarks. I even made my own personal team to start remembering where things are. So it's definitely a platform that grows with you, and integration with Adobe is really helpful there. SharePoint, specifically SharePoint Online in 365, is not your grandpa's SharePoint. Even I can go ahead and make an intranet in about 10 minutes. I know because I did it for my own team. Again, SharePoint can grow with you. It can be a simple intranet. It can be a complex approval system. It's really something to check out if you kind of looked at SharePoint years ago and said, I'm not touching that. It's definitely a new animal. Yammer is really great for full institutional communication. You don't want to create a team that has everybody in your organization in there, but for Yammer or for Microsoft, while we use Yammer, is for full institution-wide communications from leadership. So it's a really interesting tool that we've seen leadership use and specific groups like IT to be able to communicate out to different campuses. Obviously, you have the Office apps. Everybody knows you can collaborate and work together in the cloud. What sometimes people don't realize is that with 365, you can also collaborate with the actual desktop apps. I actually very rarely collaborate by opening up a browser. I'm usually just connected via my actual desktop apps and chatting with my coworkers right in that field. So there's a really broad way or lots of broad choices as to how you want to collaborate. And the advantage with Adobe Sign with all of those different choices, you can meet your users where they are. And of course, we all know Outlook. I think right now Outlook is something sometimes we have to deal with, but maybe don't necessarily enjoy. I love going on YouTube and finding all of the neat productivity hacks with Outlook. And remember, if anybody ever says to you, well, that Office 365 groups, what is that? That's pretty much the foundation of Teams. So don't let any of that vocabulary confuse you. The best part about 365 is it's an internal search engine for your organization that is founded on the Microsoft Graph. I use Delve, which is, again, your internal 365 search engine, to find out what other folks are working on, what they've shared with me through the Microsoft Graph and Delve. It's great. And then, obviously, our security and compliance. We are a software company. We are not an advertising company. Your security and compliance is of utmost importance to us. And so thank you so much for letting me share a bit about our Microsoft stack, and I'm thrilled at these integrations that we have so that you folks can find an easier time making your workflows for your stakeholders more efficient. Sarah?
I'm actually going to take it over, Jill.
Oh,
that was incredible. Thank you. Yep. No, you got it. You got it. Okay. So thank you, Jill. So if Microsoft 365 is built for teamwork, Adobe Sign is definitely built for modern digital workflows from start to finish. It's not just about the e-signature itself, and I'm just going to work from top to bottom here. It's about preparing documents for signature. So how do we turn those static documents, whether it's Word, PDF, Excel, PowerPoint, into fillable forms, maybe a web form, public facing? Then once we get to there, how do we request signatures from others? That's where the Adobe Sign piece fits in. But we can also have the ability to send a single document to one or to many people. We have a feature called Mega Sign and Giga Sign as well. So you can send a contract or something that is needs requests for signature to the entire student population if needed, with just one click and an upload of a CSV file. But you can also track these documents and set reminders too. So you have real-time tracking and visibility of the contracts that you send out. Who's opened them, who's viewed them, who's forwarded them along, how far along in the process they are before you get that final signature. And then, of course, work from any applications and devices. We don't discriminate on what platform you're using, Android, iOS, PC, Mac, doesn't matter. You can be working on your smartphone, tablet, or any other mobile device that you so choose. What's important to note here, and I just kind of want to reiterate something that Sarah and Jill had said, but Adobe Sign is Microsoft's only preferred e-signature solution. And you can see exactly why. I mean, we are basically integrated into their entire fleet, operate on Windows, OneDrive, SharePoint, Power Apps, Power Automate, Teams. We have a lot of sweet integrations there with Teams. But what I want everyone to walk away with on this slide is these are all native integrations, right? There's no coding involved, which means that you can go to market or go live with these integrations tomorrow if you so choose. And the great thing about working with Microsoft and Adobe is we've more than likely passed your IT requirements to be a vendor of choice in your institution or campus as well. So we've already checked all those boxes. Again, these are native integrations. You can go live with them tomorrow if you so choose. Okay, so this is sort of the why we do what we do. When we talk about a digital document lifecycle, we talk about it in three basic connected parts: the creation of documents, the collaboration on those documents to make sure everything is buttoned up, and the execution of those documents, including e-signatures with Adobe Sign. So in other words, if we're talking about creation, a document lifecycle begins with a document or form, right? It can take many different shapes. It can either be a static or an editable PDF created in Acrobat, or maybe a Word, PowerPoint, or Excel file that's created in Office applications. But next you get into that collaborate stage or collaboration, which can include being able to share documents with colleagues for comment and review, maybe highlighting, markups, being able to create PDF portfolios inside those systems that you're already using, or get an approval or signature. And then finally, the execution stage. This is where Adobe excels and helps close that last mile gap in Microsoft applications. So with Adobe Sign, you can close contracts or get approvals or acknowledgments. You can also, with Acrobat, publish protected PDF files to the web or SharePoint or et cetera, et cetera. So what I want to do next is show you a couple of screen grabs. These are seamless integrations that complement your productivity apps. These are the buttons that we have in Microsoft applications today. So in Microsoft 365 or in Outlook, you can send, sign, and track without leaving Outlook, Word, PowerPoint, SharePoint, or Teams. We have all those features that your students or faculty are accustomed to: the fill and sign, the send for signature, checking on agreement status inside the applications that they're already using, like Outlook. In SharePoint, we give you the ability to create and combine PDF files directly inside SharePoint, so you don't have to open up Acrobat if you don't choose to. You can create those PDFs from Word documents, PowerPoints, Excels. You can turn those into PDFs or create a package folder, what I like to call, combining a couple different file formats, packaging it up into a PDF file and sending it out. And then you can save those documents and that web form directly, or that data from web forms directly into SharePoint folders and lists. So you can essentially start building out that student profile from collecting data on your public-facing website. Some other ones that we have, chat with the Adobe Sign bot with inside Teams to check on documents. We literally have a bot inside Teams where you can type out @Adobe Sign, show me the status on XYZ contract and where that is in the process. Fill and sign documents from your custom web or mobile app with Power Apps. We have a great integration with Power Apps. We really use Power Automate as the connector there to hook into these homegrown applications that some campuses are building. I know that we build some applications organically here at Adobe as well. We love using Power Apps. And then the last picture on the right is adding that e-signature capability through Power Automate connectors. And I love talking about Power Automate because the sky is the limit with Power Automate. You can basically create whatever workflow your heart desires and add, if you so need, a signature at the end of it to collect and kind of move forward on implementation steps or whatever it may be. Okay, so let's look at a sample workflow using Microsoft 365 and Adobe Sign. And this is just a basic one that we have, but it shows you the capabilities of these workflows when you add intelligence behind it. So let's just start with a new purchase order that's created from documents stored in Teams or SharePoint using Adobe Sign, contract templates. After that document is sent for signature, the PO is routed via Adobe Sign within SharePoint, Teams, or automatically using Power Automate. So this kind of kicks off the initiation phase. But what's great is this middle column here right now, routed based on contract types. This is where Adobe Sensei, our artificial intelligence, comes into play here, along with building out these forms and templates. But for example, if I had a purchase order that was under $100,000, we can automatically route that to the appropriate manager. But for any purchase orders that are over $100,000, we can automatically route that to the appropriate managers as well. Maybe that's manager 2 and 3. And then once the manager signs off on that PO using Adobe Sign, that approved PO is automatically archived in SharePoint or your repository of choice. And you can also notify Teams channels via Power Automate to let other members know that, for instance, again, implementation on those agreements can now begin. Okay, so I wouldn't be doing justice if we didn't talk about the legality and the security of e-signatures. It is the utmost importance that Adobe adheres to industry standards and compliance for our customers. And when talking about e-signatures, legality and compliance really is just table stakes. If you can't remain compliant, then why are you even in the game, right? So we have data centers hosted globally with market-leading infrastructure vendors such as Amazon Web Services or AWS and Microsoft Azure. We support government ID verification, providing a seamless way to verify identity using a driver's license or passport. Personally, I'd love to see a use case where student IDs were sort of issued after verification of a government-issued ID. It's just a clean way to do that process. But please rest assured that you will be receiving the security and trust of a Fortune 500 company. We have put a lot of blood, sweat, and time to make sure that our customers have never really have to worry about security or compliance from a county, state, or national level, both foreign and domestic. FERPA, HIPAA, GDPR, CFR Part 11, compliant, just to name a few. We have pages and pages of security details on our website to alleviate any concerns you may have. And the best part about e-signatures is you also get real-time tracking and visibility into your documents, where they are, who has seen them, who has forwarded them along, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So we've talked about some benefits for your organization, of course, gaining real-time visibility into all your workflows. But let's talk about the value for a second. Save time, save money, and improve quality by eliminating paper-based and manual processes. And I'll show you a slide here after this that we did some work that we commissioned Forrester to do with us for thousands of our customers on some of the money or monetary savings that they've seen with e-signatures. But keep your campus running during remote operations. One of my favorites here that I think tends to be overlooked is boost staff, parent, and student satisfaction. I'm a big advocate of the experiences that you deliver can be directly correlated to your brand or your campus or your institution as well. And working at Adobe, I've become a complete snob on digital processes. If I have to print anything out, scan it, sign it, and send it back in, I really get upset, to be honest. But you need to think about that when you're talking about maybe incoming students onto your campus, you know, whatever it may be, signing up for a new administration or change of waiver or classes, or maybe, God, what's the thing where they go and work or go and study abroad program if they're applying for that. If that's something that I need to print out in 2021, that might hinder me from actually executing that I forget what I'm trying to say, but might hinder me from getting through that entire process. So always remember, the experiences that you deliver directly correlate to how your brand is perceived. Okay, so this was that piece of information that I was talking about faster. I'll just go through this really quick. 28 times faster cycle times, $28 saved per document on average, and that's accounting the average cost of the salaried employee, printing and shipping costs as well. 2.8x to 4.2x return on investment. What we see with our customers is about a 3-month turnaround time to break even on their initial investment, which is incredibly high in software. 65 hours saved per user per year, and then an NPV or a net present value of 1.8 million to 7.3 million. And if anyone out there doesn't know what an NPV is, think of it as like an investment portfolio. The general rule of thumb is if it's a positive number, then the investment should be made, and we are well into the positive here. This came from an article that we commissioned Forrester to do. It's called a Total Economic Impact Study. We did this back in 2019, where Forrester surveyed thousands of our customers to see some of the benefits that they've realized after implementing an e-signature solution. So if anyone is out there looking to put together, you know, maybe a business case for the higher ups to provide some monetary, tangible facts, this is a great resource to include in those conversations. This is a public-facing document. You can literally type in Forrester TEI Adobe Sign on Google or Bing, and it will be the first one that pops up. Okay, this is the money slide here. This is a great slide to screenshot to get those wheels turning in your head. Some common use cases that we've implemented with our K-12 higher education institution customers as well. Staff productivity, cross-team collaboration, asset creation, content review, creative collaboration. Again, great slide to screenshot if you want to share this around with some colleagues, maybe in the student services department. Release and permission forms, device distribution, course add/drop forms, financial aid forms. And then if we skip down to the bottom row here, healthcare, med schools, university hospitals, contracts, non-disclosure agreements. Informed consent, research, clinical trials as well. We have all the security and compliance around medical schools and healthcare as well. They're great industry for us to work with too. And then employee life cycle. So employee onboarding or employee offboarding, benefits enrollments, employee policies, contingent worker agreements, and time off requests. All of this can be streamlined in a digital format to make everyone's lives that much easier. So I'm actually going to pause on this for just a couple more seconds to make sure that everyone could get a screenshot from this. Again, this is the money slide. Pass this around to your colleagues. Feel free to distribute it internally. Again, these are some use cases that we've worked with our customers to implement at the K through 12 higher education level. Okay, and with that, I am going to hand things over to Lisa to show you a demo.
All righty, Garrett, am I coming through okay?
Yep, I can hear you loud and clear.
All right, so I am going to share my screen because I'm going to do a live demo for you. I apologize, you may see the screen flash twice, so I'm going to use my desktop and I'm going to attempt to use my mobile device as well, hopefully, but I have a backup if that doesn't work. One of the things I think we've learned, all of us during COVID, is connectivity isn't always the best, so you should always have a backup plan, and I have that today. So what I want to do is I want to start kind of touching on a couple of those use cases that Garrett mentioned, the first one being staff productivity. What's really valuable about our integration with Office 365 and completely across the entire platform from Microsoft is that the tools are available to you right where you work every day. And Sign is one of those things that is just simply available at your fingertips. And so what I've got here is I'm opened into Microsoft Teams. I personally live in Microsoft Teams. And so one of the things that you can do is you can access Adobe Sign right from within Microsoft Teams. You never have to leave. And it's just an app that comes up on the left side, and you'll see it over there on my left side of my screen. Let me pull it out just a little to make sure you can see it. There we go. And when I come into Adobe Sign, I can either chat, we'll look at that again in a second, or I can click on Adobe Sign and I can immediately send documents out for signature. I don't have to go anywhere else. It's just right here. And so I've got an offer letter that I need to send out to a new advisor that's coming on board, and her name's Sarah. And so I've put Sarah's email address in right here, and I've already grabbed the offer letter template that we've got available and has all her information in it. It's been pre-populated for me, and I'm just going to drop it in right here. One thing I want to note is that you can authenticate people in many different ways with Adobe Sign. So I can say that just by logging into her email, that's going to authenticate Sarah, but we can go up in security as needed. You can use a password, you can use knowledge-based authentication, and you can even use additional capabilities there as well. So we're going to use email, and then I can also customize and add a private message to Sarah so that I can let her know that we will need this completed right away if I choose to do that. There we go. We've got the offer letter going out, and I'm going to go ahead and hit send, and that's going to go out to Sarah. But one of the things that's going to happen is we're going to actually preview the document really quickly just to make sure that everything looks good. And this is something that you can set up in Adobe Sign when the document is created. As I mentioned, this has already been pre-populated. We see Sarah's information. There we go. Looks good. 30 days vacation. Okay, we're starting here. And it's just ready for her signature right there. So I'm going to click to send, and that is sent off to Sarah. So it looks like that's working good. All right, I'm going to switch over, hopefully, to my mobile device. So I'm going to stop sharing really quick, and then I'm going to start sharing on my mobile device, hopefully. And it's not working for me. One more time. Well, like I said, we always have a backup, so it's okay. I'm going to share my screen again. We won't show this on mobile, but the reason I actually wanted to show you on mobile is because it's super valuable to remember that when you're working with documents and you're sending them out for signature, it doesn't matter what device they're using, they can sign that document. And so we can take a look and we can see that Sarah has gotten this in her Gmail. It wouldn't matter if I was using Gmail on my desktop like here, or if it worked properly on my mobile device, on my phone. It does not matter. You can use Adobe Sign, and you can sign and even send documents from wherever they are. And that is super important. Again, when you're thinking about reaching people, not only are we looking to get rid of that paper and keep things electronic, but we're also looking to make sure that it's as easy as possible and you can get to anyone at any time. She can be out at the grocery store or out at work. It doesn't matter. She's going to be able to get this particular document and get it signed. So I pulled it up here, as you see, and this is in Gmail. There's all my information. So I'm Sarah right now, so I can't change anything. That's also very important. It's secure. And all I can do is sign. So I'm going to go ahead and click to sign. Apparently, I've signed before with Adobe Sign, and I've already got my signature in there. But if I wanted to change that signature, I can edit that. You can type your signature in. You can draw it, as you see here. I could upload an image, or I could even grab that signature from my mobile device as well, and there's an integration for that too. So very easy, very seamless to go ahead and place my signature as Sarah on this document and then click to sign, and that's it. A couple of steps and it's done. Again, doesn't matter what device it's on, we can see that. Now I'm going to switch back over to Teams, and what you're going to see here is that right away, that offer letter has automatically been updated for me inside of Teams. So remember, I mentioned that you don't have to leave what you're using on a daily basis to be able to utilize Adobe Sign with Microsoft Office 365 tools. So I got a notification right in Teams immediately as soon as Sarah signed. Oh, it's signed now, it's ready to go. But I also can see that particular notification inside of my Outlook as well. So notice here that I see that it was sent for signature, and then I should also see one coming through. It just may take a second. But one other thing I'll point out is we do have some icons at the top available for you to even check that agreement status. So as Garrett mentioned, I can send, but I can also get a status on these documents, and I can see exactly what's going on inside of my Microsoft tool. So I can see here that document was signed, just like we saw in Teams, and the status is right here available for me. I can click to view that agreement and make sure that Sarah got her signature on there appropriately, and then it will come up and show me, yes, that looks good. There is Sarah's agreement as well, and I can even go and get an audit report if I wanted to do that too. And what an audit report will allow me to do is it will allow me to see the audit trail of what exactly happened with this particular document. And this is important because not only is that document going to be saved automatically as part of this process, but every single thing that happens in the electronic signature transaction gets written into this audit trail. And this audit trail is saved in Adobe Sign, and it's there available at any time. You can have it as a separate document like we see here, or you can even include it as part of the final document. So not only do you have the signed document, but you also have that audit trail. These are things that are super important when you're thinking about legality of electronic signatures, as Garrett mentioned, because this audit report is one of those things that shows the legality of the signature, exactly who signed it, and when they signed it, and even things like an IP address are actually saved in the audit trail. Imagine if you had multiple people as part of this process, we would see all of those signatures here. So an audit trail is super important, and again, that's automatic as part of Adobe Sign. Getting a little bit of feedback, so hopefully everything's going okay. Everything good on the line?
Yep, seems to be.
All right.
Yep, everything's fine.
Sure. Okay, good. So I also wanted to show you, I'm going to flip back into Teams again and remind you as well that I can get those particular statuses inside of Teams as in the chat pod, or remember, just like I said, manage agreements, I can see that inside of Teams as well. So very, very important to know that not only do I have access to send, I have access to manage my agreements, see what's in progress, get notifications, all of the above without ever leaving any of the environments that I'm working in. So that's very important when we're thinking about Adobe Sign. Now, one more thing that I want to show you is the capability to be able to utilize additional tools within Office 365. And Garrett mentioned Power Automate, and Power Automate is a phenomenal tool, in my opinion. I personally like to use Power Automate to automate all sorts of different things that I do inside of my Office products. And one of the things that you can do is if you take a look inside of Power Automate at all the templates that are available out there just across all the different tools in Power Automate, and I search for Adobe, what you'll see is that we've pre-created a whole bunch of different tools for you to use inside of Power Automate that you can then customize. And one of the things that I like to do is I can take an Adobe Sign completed agreement anytime I sign anything and save it to a SharePoint library so that I don't have to go hunting for anything that I've ever signed or even what people have signed with me. I just save it automatically out to SharePoint. And you can configure this inside of Power Automate very easily. I've got a flow that I've already created here, and I'm going to pull that up. And if I open that up, what you'll see, and I'm going to edit it just so you can see it. If you haven't ever used Power Automate, it is super simple. You just have to pick the things you want to do, and you just keep going. And what you'll see here is I've got something called Education Demo. It's going to take any of my agreements that I sign. It's going to save them into my SharePoint and to a signed documents folder, and then automatically put the agreement name in there for me. And so this is very valuable. Again, think productivity, but think about all those situations where maybe you've got a department that is sharing a mailbox and you want to make sure that everything that comes in and gets signed gets saved to the right place. You can use Power Automate to set that up. And then from within SharePoint, in that shared box, you can send a document out for signature. So I'm going to click on this medical withdrawal, and I'm going to click to send for signature. Now, I'm in SharePoint in this case, but it doesn't matter. SharePoint also has an integration into Adobe Sign. I'm going to click to send for signature. It's going to take a second and then come up. And then just to make sure we don't have any issues and I have to switch to mobile, I'm going to just send it to myself. So there we go. It's going to be sent to me. And we're going to say, please sign ASAP, like that. And we're going to go in and click send to send this out to me. Very similar process. So it looks exactly the same as what we saw in Teams. We just sent it from SharePoint. So that's all good. And now it's been sent for signature. Let's go back and look at my email again. And what we'll see is that I have a document available to sign for me. I'm inside of Outlook, so I can open it up right here and click to review and sign, which is what I'm going to do. So we'll see this come up. And then I can see that we need to review and sign. I'm going to put my information in. So this is a medical withdrawal that I'm filling out. Sarah, who we just hired, is going to be my advisor. And I need a medical withdrawal for classes starting in the summer. There we go. I'm going to click to sign. My signature is right there because I sign all the time with Adobe Sign. And I'm going to click and make that available. And there we go. But what I want to remind you of is, remember, inside of Power Automate, I also had a tool that was configured to automatically take my signed documents and save them into a folder. And what you'll notice when I refresh that screen is there's that offer letter, but there's the please sign ASAP that I just put in. And I put that in so you could see that we did it right now, that I just signed. And if I click on it, Power Automate automatically took that document straight out of Adobe Sign, and then it's going to allow me to view this right here inside of SharePoint. And so not only did Adobe Sign automate things for me, but I personally was able to automate what happens with my signed documents in Adobe Sign. So remember, Adobe Sign is not just a great tool to send out and check status, but you can also automate things as a signer if you choose to do that, so that you can make sure that not only are you sending out and monitoring and tracking, but you're also tracking everything that you sign as well. So very, very valuable. Not only can you do things like that with Power Automate, obviously you can do much more complex things with Power Automate, including very long and detailed workflows if you needed to do that. So lots of things that you can do. I am going to stop the demo at this point and hand back over to, I believe, Sarah. And hopefully that gave you a quick preview into what you can do with Adobe Sign and Microsoft.
Hi, thanks so much. That was awesome, Lisa. Really appreciate it. Can everyone hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. Just wanted to verify that I had unmuted myself. All right. So I think unsurprisingly, given the power of the integrations that we have, it's something that a lot of brands across all industries, including education, are taking advantage of. We're working with Azusa Pacific, Rasmussen, Pepperdine, to name a few in the education space. And one success story that we really love is the relationship we have with the Iowa University Foundation. So I'm going to kind of give you a preview into what that looks like. Their key use case is around the alumni giving, which is something that supports university students, faculty, the buildings, the programs, everything, right? It kind of like gives lifeblood to the campus. And the challenge, though, is that when it comes to getting donation agreements approved, processed, getting the funds distributed, it requires a large amount of paperwork and signed approvals from several different stakeholders. And there's also a lot of compliance regulations involved. So just in a word, sorry, slides are doing something weird. In a word, it's quite complicated. Hi, someone, sorry, these slides keep switching. There wasn't any room to add any more complexity, so it was really critical for the university to find an e-signature solution they could use that would be compatible with all of the already heavily embedded Microsoft solutions that they have. Because Adobe Sign and Document Cloud are built, as you've seen, to work naturally with Microsoft SharePoint, Microsoft Teams, Power Automate, it's made the implementation on their campus really easy, and it's helped to minimize the burden that it has on their staff. It works really beautifully. Just as a quick example, by using the SharePoint integration, they have this complete view of the agreement status without the need to have all this time-consuming one-off data entry. And also less admin work and fewer errors, which is a huge bonus. Plus, staff can easily go check out the tracking and then give their donors quick status updates on demand. And the results here are really impressive. The agreement turnaround time has been cut by an average of 13 days. Printing volume is down 30%. So this saves money, and then it's really good for the environment as well. I'm just going to quickly wrap this up with a quote from Dave Thalacker. This is the university's Director of IT Operations and Network Security. Rather than spending their time tracking and following up on agreements, teams can focus their time on working with more donors and completing more agreements. So, the real takeaway here is that Adobe Sign and Microsoft together have really helped Iowa create a better giving experience. And it's one that keeps donors happy, and it keeps money flowing into the university to continue supporting its students and its faculty. All right, I'm going to move into the wrap-up. Before I do that, I just have a couple more poll questions. One of those is getting a sense of the tools that you're currently using on your campus, both as it pertains to Adobe as well as Microsoft products that you're using. So feel free to just note the Adobe solutions and then type in any of the Microsoft products that you're using in any institutions, and feel free to add any color into your results as well. 365, Word, Excel, yep, all of the usual suspects. Great. So feel free to keep adding that up. In the meantime, I'm going to wrap us up and then give us a little bit of time to cover some of the big questions that are coming up over in our chat pod. All right, so the first point, beyond our Microsoft integration, we are actively exploring integrations with some SIS and document management solutions that we know are big in the education space. This is all kind of exploratory at this point, but we've gotten a lot of feedback that products such as Ellucian are really critical to this space. So just putting that out here. But I'm curious what your thoughts are on these systems, and what other integrations would you like to see us explore? This is something we're very curious about. We want to make sure that we're meeting your needs, We would love to hear more about your integration needs, hear about the use case details specifically. So if you are open, we would love to have a conversation with you to discuss this. It'll be quick and painless, I promise. If this is an opportunity that you would be interested in taking us up on, then please go ahead and drop your information, your name and your email into the chat pod. If we can skip to the chat pod for this, that would be great. So just drop us your name, drop us your email, and again, put in any detail about the integration solutions that you're specifically interested in talking about with us. All right, so like I said, definitely drop in your info if you have it to share. And in the meantime, I'll just go ahead and close out with some next steps. So I wanted to point out some resources that touch on the areas and the topics that we've been talking about today that hopefully will come in useful for you. You can see those in step 1. You can click on the link there for learning more about the Microsoft Teams integration. You can click on the second link to get a broader view of other Microsoft integrations. And then the third link is a brand new website that we've just launched that is a great portal to explore all things related to Sign. Okay. And next step number 2 is just an invitation to join us for our next session that we have. It's going to be on June 9th, same time, 10 a.m. Pacific, and it's going to be about getting started with Adobe Sign. This is a little bit more of a hands-on, so if you are actually using Adobe Sign and you're curious about how you set up the consoles, how you start taking advantage of some of the key features, great session for that. Feel free to come and invite your colleagues. And then final next step is just if you are looking for more information, if you'd like to have a custom demo, we would be more than happy to do that. Just get in touch with your rep to set something up. All right, and that is all from me and the team. Thank you again so much for joining us. I'm going to turn it over to Lori, who's going to be highlighting some of these, some of the key questions that have come up in the chat pod.
Thanks, Sarah. I hope you can hear me well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So we have had a lot of questions come through. We're trying to answer them as they come in, but we're going to highlight some of the most common questions. So the first question that we hear a lot is talking about the difference between Adobe Sign for Individual, which is part of Acrobat Pro DC, and what we've heard today, which is Sign for Enterprise.
All right, I can take that. So the big difference is, through Acrobat, you have the individual version of Sign. And there's a couple, potential drawbacks there. One is it provides a limited number of signature transactions. And the bigger point is that they work on an individual entitlement basis. So this means you can't pull them, you can't add additional ones, and more importantly, especially when it comes to education with all the compliance, the audit trail belongs to the individual licensee. So if the individual who is using it leaves the school, you're not going to have access to their audit trail. You also lose out on some of the control and workflow automation benefits. So it's just a product difference, and I can pop a link into the chat pod that provides more detail on this too.
Okay, great. We talked a lot about Microsoft 365. Does that mean that there's a connector for Adobe Sign without any requirements on my behalf to add anything?
Sarah, I can take that one. It's Lisa.
Okay,
yes, so the connector is available. It's available as part of Microsoft or Office 365. You do have to enable it, so it doesn't come enabled automatically. That's typically done by your IT organization, or depending on how you have Office 365 set up, you can go in and add it as an app. Like I said, it's available. There's nothing special you have to do. You just have to turn it on.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lisa. And so as the receiver of a document, do I have to have an Adobe license?
No, you do not. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Sarah. Okay,
Sorry.
yeah, that's kind of the special. Yeah, no, that's kind of the special thing about Adobe is we don't charge to participate in a workflow or a signature feature. So if I'm a recipient of a contract, all I need is access to the internet and my email address. I don't have to have an account or create an account. I don't have to have a login or anything like that. I can fully initiate myself into that signing ceremony at no cost.
I'll add on one thing to that, and I've seen this come up sometimes with educational institutions. We also allow you to customize. And so you might have seen in the demo that I had, sometimes you saw Adobe, but you also might have seen Global Corp. You can customize your Adobe Sign instance so that when someone receives a document, they know it's coming from the university or the school. And we also don't market to your customers. One of the things that we've had educational institutions ask before when they've looked at other products is they've said, it doesn't look like it's coming from us, and they'll get a message that asks them to sign up for an account, but that's not what we want them to do. We don't do that at Adobe. No charge for the signature. We don't market to your students or anybody else that's signing. And we also allow you to fully brand so that it is a consistent experience with your institution. And that's very important when you're thinking about sending these out. And nowadays, when people are concerned about clicking on an email, they want to know who it's coming from. And so that branding can be very important.
Lisa, to add on to that, can you talk more about additional authentication, like password, KBA, et cetera?
Yeah. So I mentioned that one of the things that when you're sending things out, you can select the authentication. You could also require an authentication. When you, depending on how you want to set that authentication up, you would do that at the time of sending. So when I'm sending that out, I'm going to specify what that authentication is. What you saw was just email. We can also use social identities. That is possible as well, which basically just means, I've got to log into my social and authenticate myself in some way. If you use a password, that means that the person signing has to have that exact password. So you probably want to send it via some other mechanism to get them that password. That can be hard to do sometimes, but if you have something in place to do that, definitely the way to go. Knowledge-based authentication, though, is something that many folks use, and that is an outside service. So it's integrated with Adobe Sign, but we utilize an outside service for that. And it will ask you things, and if you've ever seen this before, maybe to get a credit report or something like that, it asks you personal things about yourself, like, have you ever lived at this street? Do you have a loan with this person, whatever? And it will actually authenticate you in that way. So what I'll tell you on authentication is you can step it up and go as high as you want on that. It kind of depends in a lot of cases on the university or the institution. It also depends on the situation. For internal workflows, you may say, you know what, email's good enough because we're authenticating everybody anyway. But for anything going external, we may want to step up that that authentication. Again, totally flexible, whatever you need to do.
That's perfect. Thank you. Can you clarify what exactly is a transaction?
You want me to take that one too?
Sure.
So a transaction is, if we look back at the demo, think about what I did when I sent out the document to Sarah Tran. Sarah signed it, and that was it. That is a transaction. And so the start all the way to finish of the entire process is one transaction. Now, where it gets confusing is people think, well, does that mean it's each transaction is per signer? And the answer is no. It is an entire transaction from start to finish. So whether I've got one signer, it's Sarah, or I've got 10 signers that's going through an approval process, that is one transaction. And so when you're thinking through your workflows, what you want to make sure you understand, in a lot of cases you're looking at and licensing around the transaction. So you need to think about how many times are you going to go through that particular process. And it might, again, have 5 signatures. It might have 1, but how many times am I sending? And then that whole thing is completing and coming back. That's one transaction. And so what usually people will think about is number of sends. I've heard that a lot. We call it transactions, but most of the time when I talk to customers, I just try to encourage them to say, look, how many times do you think you're going to be sending this out for signature? Doesn't matter how many people sign it. How many times are you sending it? That's where you start to add the transactions in. So again, remember, start to finish.
And if I can add on to that, Lisa. Yeah, if I can add one more thing on that. There was one gal in the audience that asked a question. She needs 900 people to sign their own individual waiver. So like think of like a change of a student handbook or whatever it may be, and you need 2,000 parents to acknowledge that change or 2,000 students to acknowledge that change. That counts as 2,000 transactions. So that was different from what Lisa was talking about. That's a feature that we call GigaSign or MegaSign. So you can send one contract out to 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 different recipients and collect 10,000 contracts sent back. I hope that's clear for everyone out there.
But those are all separate contracts. So that's a good point, Garrett.
Yep.
Remember, again,
Exactly.
think about how many you're sending out. They're all separate because each person is signing separate versus one clear workflow that might go through an approval process. And that's kind of where it can get confusing. So we're happy to help clarify that for you as you're thinking through these things.
So just to add on a question to GigaSign or MegaSign. So Garrett, you mentioned sending out one document to 900 people. Is there a way to report on who signed that and maybe like a CSV output?
Yeah, so essentially how you would import those contacts via CSV, you can also export a CSV file with that data as well.
Perfect. Okay, I think we probably have time for one more question, but we are answering the questions as they come along. So, keep asking the questions, and we'll definitely provide the recording to this session after as well. But the last question is, Workflow Designer, is it free?
That comes with the enterprise version, right, Lisa?
That's right. Yeah. So it does come with the enterprise version. I wouldn't call it free. It's part of the license, but it is available. You don't have to pay extra for it. If you have Sign Enterprise, Workflow Designer is included.
Perfect. Thank you. And we'll turn it back to Sarah to close.
Sure. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for all the great questions. Thank you, everyone on the team, for helping and supporting those questions. I feel free to reach out. Feel free to pop your email into the chat pod if you want us to reach out to you with anything that we weren't able to cover. And thank you all for joining. Just a reminder, we will be sending out a recap. You'll be able to access this recording on demand. So if you have other people on your team you'd like to forward it around to, feel free to do that. And hopefully we'll also see you at our next session in June. So with that, we'll close it out.